Hey everyone, this is Mustafa with Digital Marketing with Mustafa. I am back with another episode. This episode was inspired by a question that was asked by one of the followers on my Facebook page, Digital Marketing with Mustafa. On the post, I was pretty much talking about um, just really putting yourself out there and personal branding and really seeing yourself in the role of a teacher and sharing what you know to help others. And so a question came in the comments from one of the followers was, I'm new to this and how do I increase my visibility, beyond where I am now? And I thought about it and I thought about it and I thought about it, what would be the best answer to give to this person so that I can help them in their journey and help them be more successful online. And I thought of many different ways that answer it. I mean, I know the answer, but I just thought about how could I be most helpful to them. And I could not get a answer that I felt was enough that could be capsulized within a comment. And so I didn't want to skimp on the answer. So I said I just can't get it in the comment that I feel that would really take this person where they need to go. So I say, we live in an era of modern technology. I have access to live. So let me just jump on a live and just deep dive as much as I can and answer the question. And in answering the followers' question, I'll probably be answering a question for many others who may be struggling with gaining more visibility or being more known or out there on social media, whether it's Facebook or TikTok or YouTube. This person specifically was speaking of Facebook, so I will speak more Facebook centric. But the principles that I'm going to give in this video can be used across the whole social media landscape, whatever platform you actually land on. So Facebook centric, but it can be used anywhere. So just apply the principle to your unique situation if you're on a different platform. So the question was asked, as I mentioned, how can I increase my visibility if I'm, have a small page or I'm not getting a lot of engagement, a lot of people are not, really showing up and talking to me and supporting me, how do I gain that visibility? And as I say once before, every successful social media person who you may see that has a large following, or you see them with, 3,000 or 5,000, 10,000, half a million or millions, they all had to start with zero. Remember that. They all had to start with zero. They all had those struggle moments, those first few weeks and months and years, even where they were in struggle mode, where they were talking into the void or into an echo chamber and nobody was talking back to them. And they were just, wondering, was all this even worth it? And they may have struggled sometime with thinking about giving up and throwing in the towel. So I have 6 points that I want to talk to on how to increase your visibility. I wrote them down so I won't be tripping over my words and making any mistakes and leaving anything out. So if you see me looking over, it's just me looking at my notes to make sure I get everything out. I hate to record a video and think, man, I forgot to say that. Man, I forgot. So I just put everything down so that everything comes through. So what I just mentioned about every successful social media creator or content creator or personality or influencer that is considered successful today, they all had to start at zero. And then they got their first 50 followers and their first 100 followers. So that leads to my first point is you have to have patience. Sometimes you may be in your first month or your first 90 days and it seems like you're posting every day and you're trying all the right things. You're putting out reels, you're putting out memes, you're showing up and really putting your best content forward and your best effort, and it just seems like things are not taking off. So that leads to the first point, that you have to be patient. You have to post and put content out there because you love it and you're doing it from your heart, not necessarily because you're expecting a response. Because if you are doing it just because you're looking for a response, when you don't get response, it can discourage you and you will quit. So you have to have patience and do it for the love of what you're doing. Um, I was looking at my stats and my page, it took a while before I have multiple pages, but my most recent page that blew up, I posted 830 pieces of content or social media posts before my page even took off. I'm gonna say that one more time. I posted over 800, around 830 social media posts before my page even caught traction and took off. Now, that may not be your case. You know, you may take off quicker, you may take off 150 posts, just depend on what niche that you're in, your audience, so many different variable factors. But in my case, um, it took me 800 and something, I think 830 posts before my page caught fire and people started gravitating toward me and people started following me and in masses, and I started getting engagement and started getting people really sharing and talking about me. It took 800 something posts. So could you imagine the type of patience it took for me? It took me about a year. I think it took me about a year to really get my most recent page up and going where I wanted to go with some visibility. So could you imagine month one, month three, month six, month nine, month 10, month 11, month 12, and you just keep posting and it seems like nothing is happening? I went through that. I experienced that. But I kept posting. And then to keep it real, I had moments where, I would just take a week off where it just seems like you're just putting your heart in creating your best stuff and no one's responding. It can have a demoralizing, discouraging effect, no doubt about it. But you have to come back and you have to just keep posting and keep posting and keep posting and keep posting. And the thing about that is you're planting seeds. And you know as well as I that if you plant a seed for a tree, that tree doesn't come out next week. It doesn't even come out next month. It doesn't come out in a year, but you have to still keep watering. You have to still keep nurturing it, and eventually it does grow. But there's a patience process in it. But if you create all these posts and all this content and it seems like nobody's showing up, and it may take 6 months, a year, or more for people to show up, guess what's going to happen? When people eventually do show up, you're going to have so much content in your back catalog for them to go back through. They're going to be blown away. Now, people are showing up on me now, but I got 837 social media posts that they can go back to look at in my back catalog. So now that's going to blow up all your other content, and it just creates a compound effect. So all your content just start blowing up, and they start, oh man, they got this post from 6 months ago. This is still relevant. They got this reel from 3 months ago. This is still relevant. Let me tell someone about this. Let me share this. So it works. It helps. Um, so number one, just be patient. It takes time. It happens to the best of us. Just be patient and just keep posting your content and do it from your heart and do it because you love it. And that will have a buffer effect from discouragement or disillusionment with not seeing immediate results. Um, what does more visibility look like to you? Some people may be satisfied with just having 3,000 followers, 5,000 followers, 10,000 followers. Don't really compare yourself to someone else. Someone can have 10,000 followers, but they don't have all the engagement. Whereas someone could only have 3,000 followers, but they have super engagement. Which one is better? Is it better to have big numbers, but small and little to no engagement? Or is it better to have smaller numbers, but you got engagement? You have an active community of people who are commenting, sharing, asking questions, letting other people know, putting you out there. So you have to ask the question to yourself, what does more visibility look like for you? Would you be satisfied with a smaller community, but they're actively engaged and talking, and you're creating community, or do you want the big numbers? That's a question that you would have to answer for yourself. Me, I'm kind of in the middle. Um, I don't want small numbers necessarily. Not that I'm chasing numbers in a vanity sense, and I don't have to be at a million. Though that'll be nice. I could take a nice mid, 10 to 20,000, and a few of my pages I've grown to that number 10, 20,000, and that works fine for me. If I can have 10, 20,000 solid people and they're communicating, and it's a community of love, and people are cooperating, and commenting is going on, and sharing, I can work with that. But find out, what does more visibility mean for you? Number three, this is very important. You have to respond to each comment, even when you're small. Now, you may only get one or two comments. You may only get one or two people here or there who are responding to you, but you have to make them people the VIPs, because they are the VIPs. Especially if your page is still small and that's all that's responding to you. You got to respond to them one or two or three or five people, and you got to make them feel like they're the VIPs. I mean, you respond to their comments, show some love, react, um, answer their questions if they're asking questions. Depending on what type of page or business that you're running. Really put them out there, and the more you respond, that creates more activity in the algorithm and in the social media timeline, meaning it keeps putting your page out there. The more that you comment and the more you create conversation. So respond to the comments, especially early on when you're small. It's easier to respond to three or five people who are you're becoming your little base, versus you have like I said, a 10,000 page, and you got 300, 400, 500 comments per post. You can't respond to everybody when you got three, four, 500 comments. But when you're small and you're growing and you're trying to build that community and you're trying to build that visibility engagement, those early adopters and those early followers, you got to treat them like a VIP. You got to put a crown on their heads. You got to talk to them, and let them know you appreciate them, and put them out there. And the more you put them out there, it increases your visibility in the as I said, in the algorithm and in the timeline. And then it just makes people feel good that you took time out of your schedule to acknowledge them. So definitely do that. Respond to each comment, especially when you're small. When you get bigger, it's not going to be possible. um the fourth thing I would say is, don't be passive with your social media um, activity. Don't be passive. Don't set up a social media page and just wait for people to come to you. That's a big mistake, especially when you're small. There are so many groups that are based around, based around so many different categories, so many different interests. If you're a gamer, there are gaming groups. If you're a PlayStation fan, an Xbox fan, a Nintendo fan, there are dedicated groups to each of those systems that you can go into. If you're a retro gamer, there's even an Atari 2600 fan group. There's NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis. If you're from the 90s, PlayStation. I mean, it's so many different groups. If you're into health and wellness, if you're into vegan, vegetarian, if you're into certain genres of music, classic rock, early hip hop, 2000s music, if you're into exercise, if you're into strength training, if you're into strength training over 50, strength training over 60, if you're into travel, if you're into certain movies, if you're into Marvel movies, if you're into Star Wars movies, if you're into Lord of the Rings, if you're into fashion, if you're into intermittent fasting, that's particular health. If you're into different religions, if you're into metaphysics, if you're into so many different things, there's a group for it. So whatever your page is based upon, go to these groups. and find your people who align with what you're talking about on your page. And don't go there in a salesy way. If you're selling anything or if you're a service or a business, just go there and show up to help. Just show up as a community member and start talking. Yeah, I had questions about that new Masters of the Universe movie. Or yeah, I'm finna go watch that new Supergirl movie. Or yeah, my favorite Marvel movie is Age of Ultron. I like the Avengers. I liked Endgame. Yeah, I like Spider-Man Homecoming. Just show up and start talking, right? And show up and be helpful. If you're a dietitian, go find the groups where people are talking about health or people are struggling with their health. And then you just show up as a dietitian, right? And you start dropping nuggets and showing them, helpful tips, showing them how to exercise a few times a week. If you're into strength training, you go to the pages where, maybe strength training over 50, where people are in their 50s and they may be wondering if they can even strength train at that age. And then if you know a little something about that, you go to these groups and you just start talking to people and start helping them. Like, yeah, I didn't start strength training until I was 49 and I'm 55 now and I'm still, doing things. And this what worked for me. And this what you may want to do during the week. And maybe you want to start with, a 15-pound dumbbell and get you some resistant bands and start with some body weights for, the first couple months. And then you can transition to something bigger. See, that's helpfulness. Or, if you're into your hairstylist, you can go into groups where women are struggling with certain hair issues and you go in and just show up and be helpful and talk about how you can help them and what you can do for them, right? And what this does for you is when you show up and you help them and they like you, they're going to want to know, who are you? They're going to click on your profile. They're going to see what else you got to offer. And you know what that's going to create? They're going to follow you. They're going to like your page. They're going to show up and see, what else are you talking about? What else do you have to offer? So that's one thing that I do and I teach is don't be passive. Don't wait for the people to come to you, because if your page is small and you're just posting and posting and posting into the void and nobody's hearing it, that's a hard thing to overcome. But if you go to the people, go into the groups, go into discussions where people are talking about what aligns with what you're talking about, then over time you can start building and attracting some of those people to your page, to your platform. Back in December, I did an experimental page, started from zero. And I built this page to over 1,000 people like in a couple of months just by doing this very strategy. I just went into groups that were aligned with what the page was about, and I shared memes, I shared content, I was helpful, I answered questions. I was a participant, I was a community member. I did all of that. I didn't go in there salesy. I just went in there and just talked to people, and I was helpful. And my page blew up. My page had like little to no numbers on it, but I had engagement into the hundreds of thousands. People started showing up and telling another about it and recommending, and I got that page to over 1,000 people in super engagement in about 2 months, and it's still doing well for me. And that's another video that I want to talk about at another time about that page, because that's one of my case studies. That page, some interesting things happened on that page, good, that I think will be useful information for all of us, especially when you're trying to grow a page from zero to something. So go to the people. Don't be passive. 5, create content. That should go without saying. You have to create a lot of content, family. You have to create a lot of content. That content doesn't have to be the same thing on every day. Switch it up sometime. It can be something as simple as just a 1 or 2 sentence social media post. Myself, I like memes. I think memes are a great means of communication, and memes are just those social media blogs that are 1080 by 1080. They're like in a little square block form. You can put images in them, some words, some backgrounds, quotes. And I love them because they're highly viral and they're highly shareable and they really get straight to the point. You either put a little image or background and you put a quote, and it's immediately understood what you're saying. So I'm not telling you that that's what you have to do, but that's what I like to do. But you can create social media posts, you can create memes, you can do those reels, which are 1 or 2 minutes long. You can do clips of your longer YouTube videos. You can create what's the my mind just went blank. You can do carousel posts, which are like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different meme type posts where you're telling like a story. Those work really, really well. You can you can do Q&As depending on what platform you're on, where you just not Q&A, excuse me. You can do polls. You can do polls. Those work really, really well and get a lot of interaction and engagement. And then you can let people um, comment, talk in the comments. That works really, really well. So create a lot of excuse me, create a lot of content and just switch it up throughout the week. One day you may do a reel or two, another day you may just do a social media post. You may do a thought of the day, you may do a few memes on another day, you may do reels if I didn't already say that. You may clip some of your YouTube videos and do that. Another thing that I really do and advise is do an audit of your previous content and go back to your previous content and see what you can repurpose. Repurposing is a very powerful strategy. Go back into a reel that may have worked, that may have been 3 minutes, and then chop that reel up into 3 1-minute episodes if you can. And now you got 3 new pieces of content just off a 3 minute reel. Um, if you got some social media posts that were just text, then why don't you repurpose that text and put a graphic with it or a background and make a meme out of, or a few memes? Or if you had a couple of posts that were similar in nature where you were talking about a particular theme or subject, then why don't you create a carousel of meme type posts where you could tell a story through 3 or 4 or 5 of those? There's so many different pieces of content that you can create. I'm just scratching the surface, mentioning a few of them, things that I do personally and that work for me. But you got to create that content. Content is king. Content will blow your page up. Content will create visibility. Content will allow you to establish yourself as a expert and as a subject matter expert, and will create visibility for you, especially if you're helpful and you're sharing useful information. So definitely create, as much content as you want to. Go back and look into my catalog. I have a video and content about batch creation. If you don't have a lot of time during the week, I definitely advise you batch create, like on a Sunday, like today. Go ahead and create 2 or 3 reels on Sunday, create a few social media posts, create 2 or 3 memes, chop up some of your YouTube videos. Yeah, do all that on a Sunday and schedule it through your scheduling social media platform, and that way you're good to go for that week coming up. You got all your social media posts out there, and you ain't got to worry on Wednesday. I haven't posted nothing. What should I post today? Or it's Thursday, the end of the week. You haven't posted nothing, and you want, well, what should I start posting today on Thursday? Just go ahead and batch create and put your information out there. All right, that's 5 things. The last thing, number 6, is be you. Be you. You're building your social media pages and your platforms based on you. You can look at other social media pages and find inspiration, and you can find some tips and things that could probably work for you. But don't ever try to be a carbon copy or a clone of anybody. Always be you. That's what's going to make you gain more visibility, and that's what's going to make your page um, elevate among others in a sea of me too and people trying to be like others. You got to be you. You are like no one else. You are unique. You have unique experiences. You have unique stories. You have a unique way of approaching things. You have a unique way of understanding things. And your key to online success and getting some visibility is you want to be different than everybody else. You have to be you. If your page is doing what 1,000 other pages are doing, then what reason is there for someone to follow you and connect with you if they can find what you're offering on 1,000 other pages? So that doesn't mean that you can't thrive in a similar niche or niche that may be populated by so many others, but be you in that niche or that niche. If you're a comedic type person and that's how you show up, then don't try to be straight face. Put your humor in your videos, put your humor in your memes, put your humor in your social media posts. Be you. If you're a little bit more straight face, you're a little bit more, just a straight type of person, then don't try to be all bubbly and super energetic and try to be performative, because now you're being fake. That's not really who you are. I'm not saying don't show up with a little bit of energy on the social media, but I'm saying if that's not your default personality, then don't try to make it your default personality. Just be you. And the wonderful thing about social media is that who you are and what you represent, there's somebody that's gonna gravitate to that, and that's somebody that's gonna like what you're offering. So just be you at all times. Create content that's um from your heart and from who you really are. If you showed up in a room of 2,000 people and you all were talking at the same time, your voice will be drowned out because everybody is talking and everybody is drowning everybody else out, right? But if there was something unique about you, you had on a different color shirt or you had on a different outfit, if you were in a room of 2,000 people that were all talking, a few people will begin to gravitate to you because why? You're a little different. Where you get that shirt from? That's a unique outfit you got on. Man, I like your hairstyle. Never seen nothing like that. So be you, be unique, and you will begin to attract people because you're standing out in a sea of so many people who may be doing all the same things. So that's 6 things that answers the question, how do I grow my visibility online based on things that I've actually done and have experienced over these 26, 27 years of being on the internet, and the last 16 or 17 years of being on social media specific. These are things that's worked for me, and I think they'll work for you. So try them out, look at yourself, audit, and give those 6 things a try. And over time, remember, be patient. Over time, you will grow a following. You will begin to get those followers. You will begin to blow up, as they say. So try them out. Again, this is Mustafa with Digital Marketing with Mustafa. Check me out at digitalmarketingwithmustafa.com. That is my one-stop shop website that will connect you to my blog, connect you to my podcast, connect you to my video, connect you to my PDFs, connect you to my book, Digital Domination. If you want to consult with me and talk to me one-on-one, I do offer that as a service. There's a fee, but it will be a great experience for you. I don't just talk to you and leave you on your lonesome. I do actually follow up with you and we discuss strategy, how to win. Also, you can email me at let's talk at digitalmarketingwithmustafa.com. Put some questions in the comment of this video on whatever platform is on, and I will answer in the comments. Or if it's a deep enough question, I would just do another video like I did for this other follower's question, and we'll go from there. So I kept it under 30 minutes. I'm watching the clock. I didn't want to go too long. So thank you for tuning in. Digital Marketing with Mustafa. Take what you will from the video and go be great. I'm helping you win on the digital world. Peace.